Hogak against Grixis Urza. This is definitely a matchup that Fear was abundantly aware of going into the weekend. Got to figure he likes his Hogak matchup, at least doesn't mind it.
Yeah, I mean, the Card and Staring Bridge is really good against this iteration of Hogak because they no longer have the Altar of Dementia kill with Bridge from Below. And that's something that the Grixis Urza deck is really going to prey upon with those War of Inventions to get exactly Bridge from Below.
Fear.
Or Ensnaring Bridge.
Right.
I keep confusing those for some reason.
Well, only one bridge is legal, so I keep missing it.
Fair enough.
Fear starts off with Snow-Covered Island, Arkham's Astrolabe, Mox Opal, and turns that on with the Mishra's Bauble. Blood Crypt and Insolent Neonate for Donegan. He's at 18. Fear will join him at 18 as his second land is a Watery Grave.
Oh, and he passes the turn here looking to cast a War of Invention for X equals 2. Probably going to go get Sword of the Meek because he has a Thopter Foundry in hand. And if he assembles that, it might be enough to just weather the Graveyard Storm.
And the only piece missing from the infinite combo, if he has that, is the Urza.
Right, and if he actually just draws Urza, he can just hard cast the the Sword of the Meek or Thopter Foundry, depending if he has the right colors of mana.
Pre-combat, we're going to see Donegan sacrifice Insolent Neonate, discards Bloodgas. Fear responds with the War of Invention. It's for 1. It's Grafdigger's Cage.
Yeah, and this is also a great pickup. Harlan wanted to play the slow game since Dylan went ahead and cracked that Insolent Neonate and discarded the Bloodgas. He's going to lock down the graveyard here with that Grafdigger's Cage, and now you're seeing the versatility of War of Invention on display.
Only 2 copies of War in the deck, but it gives him higher access to a number of these one-ofs. The one is Ensnaring Bridge, the one Grafdigger's Cage. Also has a Pithing Needle and a Nihil Spellbomb in the deck. The Cage certainly already paying off. Donegan drew off that Neonate. Now he's going to cast a second Neonate to replace it. Right away he's going to discard Gravecrawler. Not clear if he has the second land.
Yeah, and he passed his turn here without playing one. He was digging pretty hard. And I can't imagine that Donegan is happy right now. That Grafdigger's Cage is going to be a real nuisance, but him missing the second land drop means he's not even going to be able to hard cast any of the creatures he draws.
Second Astrolabe for Fear, and here is Thopter Foundry. I believe the last card in hand, War of Invention. He might have 2 cards, but one of them looks to be War.
Yeah, and the Hogak deck is quite strong, but if your opponent leads off with a Leyline of the Void in game 1 or a Grafdigger's Cage as you see here, it doesn't have anything in the main deck that can really bust up these problematic permanents. So I can't imagine that the Hogak deck is going to be fast enough with that Grafdigger's Cage on the battlefield to be able to beat this Urza deck when it's already mostly set up.
Here's a Stitcher's Supplier for Donegan. Puts another Bloodghast in the graveyard. Can't get those back because of the Cage, and also still does not have the second land. See Fear is going to take a look at a card with Mishra's Bauble so that he can draw 2 cards on his turn. Picked up a Goblin Engineer.
Yeah, and that just naturally finds the Sword of the Meek and puts it in the graveyard, which is basically exactly where you want it / need it to be.
And then he can sacrifice the Cage when it's time to go off.
The Cage only stops creatures, so it doesn't even...
oh, yeah, it doesn't even need to do that. I keep forgetting that.
No, it's fine.
That's just good deck building.
But here, Donegan's not going to be able to handle this Sword of the Meek Thopter Foundry combo, especially with that Grafdigger's Cage online.
And an abundance of mana to work with, especially facing down functionally 0 pressure. Lightning Axe on the Engineer. Attack for 1. Fear will go ahead and make a Thopter with the Foundry. Bring back that Sword of the Meek. Go to 19.
Yeah, so on the first one, you sack any artifact, and you get a 1/1. It comes back attached to the Thopter. And then you could sack the sword itself. And that 1/2 punch allows you to spend X mana and make X 1/1s and gain X life. That's why it's so powerful with Urza, High Lord Artificer, because you actually generate 2 artifacts every time you activate it because you generate a 1/1, and you bring back the sword, so it actually generates infinite blue mana, makes infinite tokens, gains infinite life. But as you can see there, just naturally doing it manually was good enough.
And really quick win in game number 1 for Fear. And honestly, in rounds that we've covered, it seems like the average play time has been around 4 minutes for the first game this weekend.
I mean, that is Modern in a nutshell. Like I said before, you're going to have a lot of decks that have really powerful draws in game 1 that an opponent is not really going to be able to keep up with. But after game 2, you're going to see a lot more interaction, a lot more hate cards, and things are going to slow down quite a bit. Here we see in the sideboards even both players having 4 copies of Leyline of the Void, and both decks utilizing the graveyard quite a bit.
Yeah, speaking of popular trends this weekend, as you mentioned, you have those ley lines there. The sideboard for Donegan starts with those. Then he has 3 Assassin's Trophies, 2 Thoughtseas, 2 Rotting Regisaur. We've seen a little bit of that this weekend. Interesting technology against red decks. 2 Force of Vigor, a Nature's Claim, and a Fatal Push.
Now you're going to see exactly what I mean. We have 2 copies of Force of Vigor. That's like Force of Will that destroys 2 of your permanents. It's going to be a brutal beating for Harlan if he is able to draw the green card to cast it for free. Nature's Claim obviously coming in. Thoughtseize a pretty good one. Assassin's Trophy takes care of basically any annoying permanent from Harlan's side of things. And then it's kind of a coin flip on Leyline of the Void. It shuts down exactly Thopter's Sword, but there's not a whole lot else that usually utilizes the graveyard other than that. And Goblin Engineer out of the Urza deck, it's kind of a light graveyard splash. And Leyline of the Void is more for the matchups where you absolutely need to keep them off the graveyard, like the Hogak Mirrors.
Yeah, this one seems like it's probably mostly about those artifacts. Though post-sideboard, you see some enchantments. As we mentioned, those ley lines for Fear, very likely coming in here. The rest of the sideboard, 2 Fatal Push, 2 Thoughtseize, 2 Assassin's Trophy, 2 Weather the Storm, a Nature's Claim, a Tezzeret Agent of Bolas, and a Duress.
So if I'm Harlan, I'm basically just playing the control role. You don't actually care about your opponent's Ley Lines of the Void. You're going to try to win the game via Ensnaring Bridge, locking them out, and then just maybe beat them with some raw Thopter Swords if they get Leyline onto the battlefield. I don't think you want Assassin's Trophy. I don't think you want Thoughtseize or Fatal Push. All you want is 4 copies of Leyline of the Void, and then you want the rest of your deck to do the heavy lifting for you.
So this is round 15 of the Open. That means we are coming up on a cut to top 8, which is the best time to subscribe to our Twitch page here at twitch.tv/SCGTour. Get your vote in deciding the quarterfinals. Custom emoticons and badge. It's only $4.99 a month. What are you waiting for?
And you, too, can vote for the non-Hogak Mirror. Yeah, on top of the custom emoticons, I just want to say, one of them is Roll Tide. And it's me giving a big old laugh.
A banger.
It's a nice one. Both players here look like they're about ready for game 2. And this is where we're going to start to see some aggressive mulligans. If Harlan doesn't have a Leyline of the Void or that Grafdigger's Cage in his opening hand, there's a good chance he's going to send it back because his deck doesn't need like a raw amount of high raw resources to get the job done. And Leyline is so powerful that, you know, it's worth mulliganing to most of the time.
Well, possible. These hands are just above expectations. We have 2 keeps on 7 and no ley lines. Donegan will start with Blackleaf Cliffs, Faithless Looting, a couple Bloodghast to the bin. Yeah,
a nice start. Harlan here going to hopefully have Grafdigger's Cage or something to keep him in check. If not, he's going to need a really quick assembly of Thopter Sword Urza.
See him making the most of a Mishra's Bauble. Looks at the top card of his library, shuffles it away with the Polluted Delta.
Get rid of it.
Goes to 19 for a snow-covered island. A play pattern popularized by Grixis Death Shadow.
Now, I don't want to misspeak here, but I believe actually Patrick Chapin was one of the original innovators of the Mishra's Bauble technology. There was...
you played some Abbot of Carol Keep nonsense a while back,
I believe there was Abbot of Carol Keep, but I also think it was Monastery Mentor. It was like a weird like Mardu deck with Mishra's Baubles, and it made Mishra's Bauble jump from $2 or whatever to 10, and then over time a lot of people picked it up for Death Shadow because it lets you filter without playing blue. It also counts for Delirium and Tarmogoyf.
Few more permanents added to the battlefield for Fear. You see a Mox Opal, a Mishra's Bauble, and a Chromatic Star. Donegan's going to go to work. He gets those Bloodghast back with the Fetch Land. He's going to cast a Satyr Wayfinder. There's the GAC.
Yeah, he's going to put all these in the graveyard, and he can delve a bunch, put Hogak on the battlefield. And this is turn 2. Really strong start.
Leaves Faithless Looting behind as well. End step, Fear is going to take a look at the top card of Donegan's library with Mishra's Bauble. Draw a couple cards for his turn. You see a Whir of Invention there. Going to be late to find a Grafdigger's Cage in this game.
Sure, but he does have another 0-mana artifact, so he can Whir for Bridge right now, and that shuts down the Hogak attacking right now. For a little while, though, because his hand still has like four or so cards, the Bloodghast and Satyr Wayfinder could chunk in, but at 19 life, you have to imagine he'll be able to empty his hand before they end up being too much of a problem.
So Spire of Industry is the land. There's Mishra's Bauble. So you see a Whir for 3 online here. Might be a check to see if Donegan has an answer.
Yeah, interestingly enough, though, Donegan has the Assassin's Trophy at the ready, so Harlan here is going to go get Ensnaring Bridge off the bottom of the deck, and it's going to get popped immediately, and then Donegan's going to crash in for 13 damage.
Not bad.
Pretty good turn 3.
So there's an attack for 13, fear to 6.
Love me a free 8/8. You find off a Satyr Wayfinder.
That is 3/4 of a crack from the GAC. And here's a Gravecrawler kicker for Donegan.
Now, Harlan here drew a Leyline of the Void and a Nihil Spellbomb after his opener. You have to imagine he's thinking about, man, maybe I should have mulliganed my opening hand. It was pretty good. But this Hogak deck is so consistent and so powerful that I'm just getting maximally punished now for my decision.
The bridge got tagged by a card that could have answered one Leyline, to be fair. Though Donegan wouldn't have already had 13 power on the table if it was Leyline versus bridge.
Oh, yeah. He would have at least 1 or 2 more turns before he would be getting punched in the face by an 8/8.
Harlan's going to sacrifice Chromatic Star. Needs to look at something better than what he has. Here's an Arkham's Astrolabe, and he's going to pick him up.
Yeah, nothing much to do there for Harlan. Donegan had a really fast start, had the Assassin's Trophy to knock off the Ensnaring Bridge, and we're tied up 1-1 here. The winner here going into the top 8 at SCG Columbus. Now, both players are decently high on the leaderboard. You see on the sides of their name, Harlan Fear in 12th place, Dylan Donegan in 13th place. And they are racing for the Players' Championship at the end of the year. Every single point matters. If they top 8 here, they're going to solidify their spot in the top 16, and that's going to keep them in the red with 2 buys. And as long as you're having 2 buys at every event, you know it becomes harder and harder for people to start catching up that are behind you.
Dylan Donegan had a win on camera last match. Wasn't happy with the way he played it. Gets a shot at another win in this round. Last year he had 5 top 8s out of 14 opens played. 16 top 8s all time, 2 wins, invitational top 8 with a win. Made the Elemental token at the time. Pretty big Younger Pyromancer fan.
Yeah, 2 open wins out of 16 tries. That's dead average. But he also has 1 invitational win and 1 invitational top 8.
You know, it's not that average. Having 16 top 8s when you're 22 years old.
Yeah, I've known Dylan since he was a wee baby. I was burping him at the invitational that he won. You know, he needed some help. His bottle was empty and he was full. He just needed a little loving.
I'm sure glad he must be glad that you were there.
Oh yeah. I got 9th place at that invitational. I was mad about it.
That is a dissatisfying tournament result.
I agree. Well, to be fair, I thought I was dead for like 6 rounds straight or something. And then in the last round, they put me on camera, and they're like, you got to win it in. I'm just like, there's no way. My tiebreakers are so bad. And they're like, they're not that bad. And then I won really fast, waited around for an hour, and then they posted standings, and I got 9th.
I'm sure you were pretty jazzed about all that.
Oh, yeah. I didn't even play the Classic the next day. I was too distraught.
Gave you more time to burp young Donegan, though.
Oh yeah, no, we give him the 11s. We give him the burpins right before, you know. This is getting weird. I'm gonna stop doing it.
I don't know if it's getting weird.
Because he's so small.
I think it's been weird.
He's so small. He's a small bean.
Donegan taking a mulligan here. Fear once again keeping on 7. Maybe past the ley line check this time.
Now, a lot of people talk about young Austin Collins being a prodigy. You know, before him, there were plenty of young players that came up here on the SCG Tour. Dylan Donegan is no slouch. He was, I believe, 17 years old when he won his invitational in Seattle back in 2013 or 2014. I forget which. Might have been 6 years ago.
Yeah, 5, 6, somewhere in that range. His win was before I started doing commentary. I know that much.
Hey, same. I've only been doing it for a little while, though.
Donegan taking a look at a 6. Game 1 was not one where he committed many game actions. He'd like to have a better crack at it. Might not, though. Fear's opening on that Leyline of the Void. Cast in Arkham's Astrolabe, a Mishra's Bauble, a second Bauble, and a Mox Opal. Pretty similar starts in all 3 games, except this time he has that ley line.
Yeah, now Donegan's going to need some answer here on turn 2 or maybe turn 3 to get this ley line off the battlefield. Otherwise, it's going to be really tough for Donegan to get any traction.
Carrion Feeder is his turn 1 play. Fear is going to take the opportunity to bobble Donegan, draws 2 cards on his turn.
Now, Feeder is one of the better starts for Donegan against a Ley Line of the Void because it doesn't put anything into the graveyard that gets exiled. And, you know, he can start sacrificing some of the weaker creatures so he can grow the Carrion Feeder and get in for more damage.
Fear executing the bobble trick again. On his turn, bobbles himself before sacrificing a Scalding Tarn at 19.
Now, maybe a small misstep. Maybe should have tapped the Mox Opal before cracking the bobble, but probably has another artifact to make that irrelevant.
Yeah, has an Arkham's Astrolabe in hand and not much else to cast here. So there's the Astrolabe. He has a Nature's Claim in hand, and here's Thopter Foundry.
All right, but he's tapped out, so there's going to be no way to protect the Ley Line of the Void. Does Donegan have the Assassin's Trophy or Nature's Claim? Or Force of Vigor?
Fear remembers Bobble Trigger on Donegan's turn, as Donegan will attack for 1, play a Pluto Delta, and pass. Fear at 18.
You have to imagine if he didn't play something here, he might have the answer, but Harlan has yet another threat that Donegan has to deal with. Sword of the Meek pairing with that Thopter Foundry is going to be problematic for Donegan, even if he's able to get that Ley Line of the Void off the battlefield right now.
Hogak is large, but you have to get on the table really quick to race a Thopter Sword combo.
For sure.
Chromatic Star is where Fear will start on his turn. He'll sacrifice that right away.
That might be a great draw.
And drew Thoughtseize off of it, which he will cast.
This is going to let him know it's up. Donegan here cracking quickly. Going for the Assassin's Trophy on the Ley Line of the Void immediately. Harlan not going to have a response, but he gets to fetch up a land. If I'm not mistaken, he still has a mana float. No, he does not have a mana floating. My apologies.
You get a look at Donegan's hand. Double Hogak, Stitcher Supplier, and Faithless Looting.
This is a spot where you actually just take the Stitcher Supplier because Donegan needs to find red for the Faithless Looting. And the Stitcher Supplier effectively puts 6 cards in the graveyard thanks to the Carrion Feeder.
And this is something that we talked about earlier in the broadcast. You saw Donegan fetch for Overgrown Tomb there. These decks just don't play Stomping Ground.
Right, but for good reason. They have a ton of black 1-drops, and I've had my fair share of Stomping Ground get in the way playing these style of decks.
Oh, by no means am I calling it a mistake.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just saying it's impossible to do this better with this deck.
Right. A Swamp is the draw for Donegan, not really what the doctor ordered.
And he's just got to pick him up.
That's rough.
Sees the writing on the wall. Donegan is tapping out. He's had enough. He'll fall to 11-4, and Harlan Fear advances.